We're talking Extinction Rebellion with Luke, Danny, and Megan from Extinction Rebellion Hull. Thanks for coming in, guys. It's really heating up. The conversation is interesting. It's focused. It's gripping, and I don't think we're barely scratching the surface. But want to have a little bit of a look at can any protest be peaceful? I know I sort of threw that out there a little earlier on and said, look, if you're protesting and it starts to disrupt things. So, like today, people have been saying, like, okay, people's access to work, ways to get to work, transport, ambulances, commuters, all this sort of stuff. Everyone's saying it's disrupting our way of life, it's disrupting the day to day. But if a protest wasn't doing that, getting into people's minds, getting onto the sort of the phones, the screens, the email inboxes of anyone and everyone, especially the people that can make change. Is that a good thing? Can that only be seen as a good thing, or is it a bad thing? The fact that it is getting in the way for some people.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. I think it's important to know that it depends on what you classify as peace. Like if you take peace to be the absence of violence, right? Then, and you say violence, well, there's a lot of different definitions of violence. I prefer to use the one which is exerting your will over another person without their consent, right? So basically any act that impacts another without them directly consenting to it is violent in some way because it removes their agency. So what if you I'm confused about why you have to ask why you're not going to protest be peaceful when really a society that's heading towards extinction be peaceful, because what's more removing agency than removing the species through inaction? That is beyond violence, in my opinion. That leads to such a level of violence where I don't know what an appropriate response is. I think an appropriate response to that is a peaceful rebellion. I don't think that violence is a useful tool when overthrowing a system. If you look throughout history of every successful system change, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, these people acted peacefully. They did act outside the law, but it was still peaceful. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're just trying to be peaceful and bring change.
And I suppose like these things are like you said, great examples. And people saw what was going on, and I guess that's the whole point of a protest, isn't it? For people to realise, look, we're taking a stand against an injustice that has been dealt, and we want people to know about this and either join our cause or just even realise what's happening. And I suppose if a protest goes unnoticed, then I kind of guess that's what's the point. Sorry, Dan.
And this element, like we talk about disruption, and it's undeniable our protests are designed to cause disruption. But then you think about the disruption caused, like a slight delay on the way to work, to our daily routines, and especially in this country, we live in a very privileged position. There are people around the world already suffering the effects of what we've done to the planet, whether that's the rise in temperatures or the loss of biodiversity. There are animals that are becoming extinct at some findings say 1,000 times the natural rate of extinction. So it's easy for us to say, oh well, this 5, 10 minutes, 20 minutes out of my day is a real pain. But we have to look at the disruption that it's already causing around the world outside of this country, and also the disruption that it will cause in the future, because it'll be easy to say now, well, this impact on my day is inconvenient. But when we're having flash floods of all the major cities around the world, then that's disruption. And so it's like we've got to lose this short-termist view that we have.
Because I know what we're like in this country. People start complaining about, the police, the police arresting 200 people when we're already 20,000 police officers short. Shouldn't they be using their resources to do other stuff, something that's a bit more important? People will look at this sort of, the ramifications and separate events that have come from the protests and focus on that. And are you worried that those things like the police being used and, like you mentioned, people's commutes being shortened or roadblocks, do you think, are you worried that might be the takeaway some people get from the protest?
That's undeniably going to happen. Some people are just not going to respond well to any form of protest or extinction rebellion. That's fine, I guess. We don't need every single person on board with this. We would like as many people to join us and agree that we need to do something about the climate crisis we're facing. But sure, you only need about 3.5% of the population to bring societal change.
Right.
That's been shown throughout a lot of different societal changes.
3.5?
3.5% of the population. There's not that much. There's what?
70.
2 million?
2 million. Something
Wow,
like that.
that's
Yeah,
interesting.
pretty
We
nice.
need
Nice
2
one.
million people in the UK
Yeah.
to join.
Just to join.
Yeah.
What's the UK total so far of members for Extinction Rebellion?
I think it's like 134,000.
Okay, so got a ways to go. Still doable. That's interesting though, considering what
that's-
it started last year.
That's the thing, like, you know, we're expecting that the numbers compared to April will be a lot more this time. But, you know, that response that you said, it's doable. It is totally doable. You know, we just need to get enough people, like, thinking about it and acting on it.
And since April, that gap of what April, May, June, July, August, September, what in the past 5 months, as the changes and the amount of people who are getting involved with this and the numbers of people turning up to marches is growing exponentially, and it's just like, wow. Do you know what I mean? Which it's impressive, but it's also worrying because it just shows you how desperate, I guess, people are getting and want to be part of something.
Yeah, and I think we have a duty as well to people who don't have a voice, and to other species of plants and animals that don't have a voice and are suffering as a result of what we're doing. And I certainly feel like a sense of moral duty to try and do this on their behalf as well as on my own behalf and of the people in this country as well. It's like a really big thing in which we're representing a lot of different living animals and plants.
So there's one thing I've been quite curious about is that anytime I see like all these people turn up to do the protest, I always think how many members of Extinction Rebellion are vegan. And this isn't me pushing a vegan agenda, because I think, well, if you're an environmentalist, shouldn't one of the things that you, when looking at yourself, instead of, you know, focusing solely on recycling, or is it recycle, reuse, repurpose, all that sort of thing, should you not look at your diet? Because the effects of veganism has, that the effects that the meat industry has, the meat and dairy industry has on the environment is massive. What do you guys think about that? Should veganism be like a part and parcel of being an environmentalist?
I don't think so at all, because I think that one of the principles of Extinction Rebellion is that we welcome every part of everyone. And when you start to create these barriers to entry, or these sort of certain things that you have to be in order to be considered an environmentalist, then that's where you start to create these tensions, and people have expectations. At the end of the day, the science shows that animal agriculture is really a very, very substantial causer of carbon emissions and of loss of biodiversity. But we can contribute. Some people won't choose to be vegan. Some people choose to eat less meat. And there's a whole spectrum. And we shouldn't put pressure on each other to be perfect. It's better to have a whole society full of people trying to make change at their own pace than it is to have a small group of people who like just sort of fulfill all of these tick boxes and descend out of the woods every time. Like they live some sort of zero carbon footprint life, which is just not possible. That's
interesting, because it feels like a bit of a flip on how I know some vegan groups to be, where like it's, you know, to be a vegan, it's a very strict and very militant thing. It's not like you can do your own. You can be part of this movement bit by bit. It has to be. It's black and white. There's no grey area in between. But you know, because you never know. I always think that, well, if people aren't vegan, but if they're being part of an environmental change movement, they might make that progression towards it. Even turning up to a march might be the first step there. But now I'm just generally quite curious about it, because I think from the logic in my head and from people I've spoken to, it's like, I know some people do find it difficult to feel like environmentalists who aren't vegan. He said, well, think that what's the point in doing one when you're not the other, which I think is quite interesting. All right, okay, so we're going to bang this Brittany Howard track, Stay High, and then we're going to get into looking at, should we do a breakdown of what some of the stuff that's happened today? Because you said that one of your members' teammates has been arrested, and you got a quote from them that you'd like to read. There's people getting married on the Westminster Bridge.
Seriously?
Honestly,
that's amazing.
Yeah. I'll show you. I'll put it.
Congratulations.
I know. I was like, wow. Me and producer Martha were like, wow, this is incredible. Like, look at all the stuff that's happening today. And I'll show you the clip right after whilst Brittany Howard plays. Honestly, if you haven't checked out Jamie, I know I was raving about this earlier on in the year. It is superb, sensational. Honestly, Brittany Howard is probably one of the greatest voices, musicians of this generation.